Okay, so today we have the honor of having Steve Lumley with us. And you have done 40 IM distance races and qualified for Kona, I heard 6 times?
Five.
But I understood there were 6 qualifications, but you went 5 because 2.
No, I went 4, qualified 4. I qualified twice in 1 year.
I see, okay. But then in addition, you have coached amateurs to great improvements and world champ qualifications, as well as you were part of this youth and development coaching in UK that really started this whole triathlon boom in England, where you had athletes that went on to national and world level racing.
Yes, yeah.
So first question, maybe difficult, but what is your proudest moment as an athlete and later as a coach?
As an athlete, proudest as an athlete. Probably finishing Kona the second time I went after DNF the first time.
Oh, okay.
So that was probably the
So what happened the first time?
It's a long story for another podcast, but basically, I wasn't fit enough, and dehydration got the better of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you also had a hard learning going to
Yes,
Kona.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, then as a coach?
As a coach, you mean apart from Harum recently qualifying for Kona?
Maybe in addition to that, yeah.
I think at an elite level, it was probably 2013 Worlds when 2 athletes I coached were basically first and second.
Oh.
I had coached at at Birmingham and through their development.
Yeah.
They were first and second at Elite Worlds that year, so that was great.
Yeah. Who were they?
Stanford won, and Jodie Stimson was second.
Oh yeah. Those are household names indeed. Okay, but then back to you as an athlete. So more than 40 times you have pushed yourself, to the brink, and you also had a couple of DNFs. But has your mentality changed over the years? Do you? I mean, has it gotten easier because you have done it so many times? So you kind of know what to expect, or is it getting harder as you get older? Or
yeah, I mean, a bit of both. Obviously, the more you do, the more, as you say, you know what to expect. There's no surprises. Or less surprises. But obviously, then as you age, it gets harder and harder to get the amount of training maybe and the recovery from it, and you do pick up niggles and other things get in the way. So it's it swings and roundabouts. You can't avoid losing fitness, but the hard thing, or the thing as you age, the thing you need obviously is to maintain what you've got as much as possible.
How about during races when it gets painful? I'm sure it still gets painful for you. Have you developed your own method of dealing with that, or is it different every time, or what's your
I think it's longer races, especially. This is common people do is break everything into chunks. So if you're doing an Ironman, you can't think about what's happening in 8, 9, 10 hours time. So it's kind of by break everything into chunks and concentrate on, start, first turn, second turn, finish, what am I going to do to transition, and then just break it down. And 8 stations is an easy one on the bike. And similar on the run, you just break it down into very small chunks that you can mentally deal with. And then if you're fit enough, you'll get the result.
Okay.
And the other thing again is, well, it comes back to what you said about what gets easier as you do more is pacing.
Right.
That's a real important thing to concentrate and focus on, especially for relatively inexperienced. It's just everybody goes too hard, especially at the start of the bike. So that is something you definitely learn from your mistakes, if nothing else. And that's a really good sort of skill and not skill, but discipline to have.
And then for having been in the sport this long, since the 90s?
80s technically,
80s?
Yeah.
Surely there's been a lot of change. I mean, on the gadgets, but also on the equipment, and maybe, I'm not sure how much on the training, but what are some of the biggest things you have seen change? What do you think has changed for the better?
I think certainly, obviously, the big one is equipment, especially on the bike. You know, I think if you look at non-draft, the biggest chunks of improvement on the bike, and a lot of that is technical. You know, but just better equipment, better positions, more knowledge. Obviously, numbers. You know, we sort of triathlons boomed. It might be sort of tailing off a little bit now, but it's still massively bigger than when I started in terms of participation. Well, you know, in UK and all around the world. I think, you know, it's easy. I think in terms of, I mean, massively professional now, which wasn't before. Government, you know, there was no. Well, when I started before the world, you know, if there was any world championships, you know, apart from Kona, and that's not really a world championship, but before the ITU was around, in terms of organising races. So, you know, obviously it's gone through a professionalism in terms of not only athletes, but also race organisation and governance. You know, it's mainly good, some bad, but that might be a grumpy old git moaning about the good old days. I think it has lost a little bit of the sort of camaraderie and the pioneer spirit since I was involved. But that's, you know, that's an old man griping. You can't find that in other sports,
right?
You know, but you know, generally everything's been positive. That's why I'm still in it, I suppose.
That leads well into the next question. So you've been doing this, then 80s, so it's like 30 years, 40 years?
No, 36.
36,
yeah.
So what is your secret to longevity in the sport? Is it the camaraderie you mentioned, or is it,
I think, that's certainly in the early days, that's what I really got a lot out of. From my own club and friends that I trained and competed with and travelled with. You know, it was just such a good laugh. And then obviously as I got into coaching, my own race, after a while took a back seat. And then you get inspiration from that, you know, watching your own athletes perform, which that sort of gradually took precedence. So I do find a lot of inspiration from watching people and seeing what people do that I've coached or been involved with.
Very good.
Harem here included.
Do you know how many I've coached to like world championship qualifications, like for 70.3 or Ironman?
I think Ironman is probably 20, 25. I think I'm not really sure. I'll have to go back and add it all up. 70.3, I don't know, probably less. Probably less, maybe half of that. But I think that's less of a goal for a lot of people. They sort of, it's on the way to Kona rather than that. It's less, obviously a lot less prestigious and a lot easier to get to. But I would say probably 12 to 15 at least have done 7.3 worlds.
Well, that's pretty good. That's almost one per year average. But I guess for if you started coaching in the 20s, so it's more than
something like that. Yeah.
Very nice. And then you lived in Malaysia for like 5-6 years.
5 years.
5 years. And I know you were like one of the catalysts there to start like youth development, some of sorts. Team time and all this. And now some of your athletes have become coaches, like Linny, Rupert, Aldrin, myself,
Edwin, yourself,
Edwin, yes.
Serena,
Yeah,
I think a little bit,
So-
Harry,
right.
bless him.
So you still have a bit of legacy going, even though you have moved away.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of making the biggest difference, that coaches are more important. So that's quite satisfying, really. That coaches have, well, they've all been athletes, and then they're sort of moved into coaches. I mean, it was similar at Birmingham as well. But, there's sort of three people from there that I can think of that have been very good athletes, but also now are at high-level coaching. Yeah. So that's quite gratifying. Yeah.
I mean, for me, and I hope I don't offend anyone now, but because we started around the time when you came, so I don't know that much history before, but I felt like you were definitely one of those who showed how much coaching can mean and what impact it can have on athletes and people.
Yeah.
I think people started taking that part more seriously.
I certainly hope so. Yeah, that would be nice. I think it's sort of we did do some good.
Yeah. But then, so you came here, and obviously the climate there is very different. It's warmer, more humid.
Yeah.
That's obviously a big difference. But talk a little bit around that. How did that change your approach to coaching, if any, and were there any other big differences from UK that you noticed and had to take into account?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you're training and racing here in this climate, then physiologically it's more difficult. So, I mean, you have to allow for that. The advantage you have that if you're born or living here, you're acclimatized, you're going to get that, so it's not like you're coming from temperate to here, and that's a real problem.
Yeah.
So, the advantage is if you're from here or live here for a long time, then you've got the acclimation, but the quality of work that you can do is always outside is always going to be hampered. So, often indoor if you want quality indoor training is a lot more important here than in a sort of temperate climate.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go somewhere like Canada, it's as important, but for the opposite way around.
Yeah.
You can't get out in the cold. So things like obviously one is hydration and fueling is different in this climate. But also, as coming back to what I mentioned before, pacing. You've got to pace yourself here, anywhere in the tropics, simply because you've got to keep that core temperature down,
right?
As low as possible.
Yeah.
When you're not only battling against your own heat that you're producing, but the outside temperature as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's obviously training out on the run, especially, is a lot more uncomfortable. But the real thing is in races is judging your effort and not, because you're going to overheat and then you're done.
Yeah.
There's no coming back.
Yeah.
So those are differences. Yeah.
Yeah. Based on what you saw, and I asked this to Te, one of your ex-athletes who just broke his 9-hour Ironman goal. Yeah. There hasn't been that many. I mean, we have Ironman races in Malaysia and had it for a long time, and there are a lot of other races as well, but there hasn't been really any top age groupers, or at least not many, who has gone on to break 9 hours and faster.
Yeah.
What do you think is causing this? Anything up with facilities or infrastructure, or is it culture or climate?
If I had to pick one, I would probably culture.
Yeah.
You got in Malaysia. I mean, the facilities aren't a problem. You've got swimming pools. You fall over them.
Yeah.
Outside is, spoiled.
Yeah.
And like the running and cycling. I mean, the roads. There's great cycling here.
Yeah.
and similarly with running, lots of opportunities there. No worse or better than anywhere else. I think the cultural thing is because I appreciate I'm generalising here, but I think the culture here is not geared towards sport the way it is in a lot of other countries. There's more pressure, if you like, from society on career and family here than there is, and I think a lot of people, if you sort of focus on your sport performance, that, again, this is a generalisation, but that can be sort of frowned upon a little bit more, that you're not always, why aren't you working? Why aren't you developing your career? Blah blah blah. So I do think that, and also there just isn't that. There isn't that level of support from the state for sport. There is. I mean, it's better than a lot of countries, but it's not the level that in many others it is that are performing, and that obviously trickles down, or it works upwards, however you look at it. But I don't think you have the history of sporting participation here that might, whether it is other places. So that's a societal view, really, of the place of sport in society, and I don't think it's quite valued here that it might be elsewhere. I think there's a few exceptions, badminton, obviously. But across a range of sports, I think that's the main sort of limiter, if you like. I don't think you can blame the facilities or even the weather. And it might be that how many people, whether amateur or professional, are participating at a serious level. That might be a limiter, that you haven't got the depth of participation that is going to produce the better athletes, if you like. Although in triathlon, I saw a difference when I was here from the first year to the fifth, and it's carried on. But at any level, good performances, or increasingly good performances, come from grassroots, participation. So the more people you get into it, the better those performances will be. But at the moment, I sort of think of triathlon in Malaysia, and let's be honest, the vast majority of it is KL or around KL. And it's kind of like a very big club in the whole of the country, in terms of it is still quite a small number of people that participate regularly, and an even smaller number that are taking it seriously. And that's probably why you've got that, if you, like you say, that limited number of people that are performing well. At, like you say, sub 9 or whatever. That would be my take on it. That's a good point, because like you said, the one thing is to have the facilities, and then you need to have enough, let's say, people and interest in the sport that goes with the biggest talent for the sport actually chooses this sport and not something else. Something else. So it needs a bit of popularity and attention. Support from states or government or Okay, then back to your coaching. So you started coaching around 2000. I think you told me. I started 95 really, sort of like limited, and then really started in 2000 when I started at Birmingham University.
Yeah.
And then the year after, we started the world-class program from there. So, and then then I went part-time as a lecturer, and part-time as a coach, and then I went full-time in 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hype words in training and coaching, and I think, of course, with social media, it's become even more. Like every week, there's like this new, I don't know, it can be a nutritional thing, or it can be a workout or something. Have you seen anything like really significantly change from the 90s or even 80s, or is it all just like minor changes to what have always been?
In terms of training, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Short answer is no.
Okay.
You know, everybody is successful or improving at any level is essentially doing the same things, you know, within limits.
Yeah.
They might call it different things, and there's different names for it, and different systems and all this. But you know, for those that are getting consistent improvement, longevity in the sport are doing the same things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now there might be certainly things like nutrition, training, recovery nutrition, race nutrition has definitely improved.
Yeah.
So that might be something that's certainly helps people recover in between sessions and possibly push themselves in sessions. But what they're actually doing hasn't changed an awful lot. You know, it's just wrapped up in a lot of jargon.
Yeah.
What it has, there's more bullshit associated with it. You know, it's just got way more. You know, a friend of mine's always saying that there's so much information now that there's way too much.
Yeah.
You know, you got power, heart rate, on the boy power on running, which all these metrics that just it can be useful, but people just sort of FTP this, and it just overloads people. And, you know, there's so much information available via social media or whatever.
Yeah.
You just need a really good bullshit filter just to cut through basically to ignore a lot of it.
Yeah.
You know, and just focus on the basics.
Yeah.
You know, so many people are focusing on the crap and just not doing the basics.
Yeah.
Day to day. So that, I think that's a big change. Just getting sidetracked by what they're reading on social media, or whatever gadget they've got is telling them, and not going on what their body's telling them. Yeah.
It's a good point, because you have the gadgets, and then you have the apps that is interpreting the data from the gadget, adding another layer.
It's just layer of crap, basically. Or it can be. Yeah. You know, it's used as a coach. It's useful to look at some of it, and to use some of it. I would say athletes need to rely on it less. A lot less. You know, example is, you know, if you're come to a climate like this, you need to adapt to everything. And you can't really. It's preferable to go on what your body's telling you than what your Garmin or whatever's telling you. Yeah. And people lose that skill.
Yeah. And I guess there's also this pressure from social media, right? That a lot of people are sharing workouts, and like everything looks like super strong and super fast. And
well, there's an expression that everything on social media is a lie. and you know, if you're a novice athlete or any level of athlete, that's a good place to start.
Right.
That, you know, all the bullshit that people put on it's either their best ever effort or they're just lying, really. You know, I won't mention any names, but, you know, we were talking about somebody who's Strava record includes putting the bins out.
Yeah. True.
And so ignoring it all is a good place to start.
Yeah.
And just focus on what you're doing and what you need to do.
Yeah.
Because most of it's lies.
Yeah. For yourself, or also maybe what you have heard elsewhere, what's the worst advice you have ever heard given to you or someone else in terms of training?
I don't think I can't pick on any individual piece of advice, but there's a lot of people that will tell you that speed doesn't come from endurance.
Right.
That you can't run or you can't perform quickly without doing fast work, fast running. You absolutely can. Yeah. So the vast majority of anybody's training should be low level.
Yeah.
And if that's all you did, you'd still get faster.
Right.
If unless you're right at the top level, So, and nobody is as aerobically fit as they could be.
Right. Yeah.
So, I would say that if you're told or read something that to run fast, bike fast, swim fast, you need to train fast.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Yeah.
Especially for novices or relatively inexperienced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so I was also going to ask what you see are the biggest mistakes that athletes do, but maybe that was an answer to that too.
I think that too much too hard.
Yeah.
And the other thing, again, another friend of mine, it's a fairly common phrase, is that people sort of overestimate what they can do in the short term. So they do too much too soon or too fast too soon, but they underestimate what they can do in the long term. So just the power of consistency. Yeah. Just day after day, week after week.
Yeah.
Just building up by being consistent, and consistent. You get consistency for sort of small chunks at a time.
Yeah.
Built up rather than sort of biting off too much.
Yeah.
Too soon. Yeah.
In your opinion, what makes a good coach?
I think somebody who can listen. Yeah. Yeah. And listen and see. Right. Yeah. So it might be something that it might be actually just listening to what athletes are telling you, or it might be looking at them and seeing what they're doing. If you're lucky enough to be hands-on and see athletes, then seeing becomes more important. Yeah. And the other thing is, most of the time it's a fine touch. It's a gentle touch, if you like, especially with age group athletes. Right. They've got other things going on. They've got families. They've got work. They've got lots of other commitments. So I think it's a kind of, and I've learned this. I have got better at this. Is right. You can't be too prescriptive. Mm-hmm. So you have to be flexible. So you set a plan, but that is your best case scenario. Yep. And then you go from there. So you have to be flexible. Yeah. You have to change things. Yeah. Or accept that they might need to be changed. Yeah. But not be too. It comes back to this thing about consistency. It's again, I've said this recently on another podcast, but it's better to do 75% of the things 100% of the time than 100% of the things 75% of the time. Right. Volume or total might be the same, but that's no good. That is better. Yep. So I think as you get towards the elite level, athletes' needs and abilities change. They and at the very top, they're obviously full time, so they have sort of less interference. So the delivery might be different for them. Yeah. But I think it's sort of a it's a steering and sort of a gentle nudging rather than if you know what I mean. Yeah. And as the age as well. Yeah. If they're very, very young, then sometimes you might need, this is what you're doing, do this, don't do that. But that will change and should change.
Yeah. I asked because I think it's also interesting that long distance triathlon particularly is very unique in the sense that it seems like remote coaching is the norm.
Yeah.
Rather than,
even for elite.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think for long, I think again, it's age group athletes haven't got the time to attend sessions with a coach.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah.
And as it's especially long distance, they're all older athletes.
Yeah.
So especially at elite level, they've been through, they've probably been, or almost certainly been elite athletes as juniors. So they've had hands-on coaching. They know a lot about themselves.
Yeah.
So they don't need somebody day in, day out looking at them.
Yeah.
So it can be just a case of like program setting and like that gentle touch I talked about, just sort of just altering things or small tweaks really. Yeah.
All right, final question. What is your race plans this year?
I'm doing Langkawi with you, aren't I? No. Well, I've just turned 60, and I've always said to myself that I'd love to be in shape to do an Ironman when I'm 60. Yeah. So that's my plan. I haven't got around to entering one yet.
Right.
So there's a couple of options.
Yeah.
I have committed before on air to doing it this year. So that's the plan.
That will happen.
Yeah, it will happen.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve.
My pleasure.
Really great to dive into the well of information you have. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
And then, as a gratitude, we have a chain lube. I'm not sure if you have tried this before. It's the one we always use for our racing.
Yeah. Thank you. So, it's yes, I've had a few of these. Yeah. Very good. It probably wasn't what it was designed for, but it's very good for muddy.
Yes.
UK.
Correct.
Cross bikes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's uniquely good. For wet and
stays on for a long time.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.